Our communities and our neighborhoods are increasingly more diverse, and that diversity is also present in the classroom. We have students from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different neighborhoods, and different life experiences. And yet our teachers continually be from the dominant white class. And so teachers bring in symbols, images, books, and information about different cultures to help represent the diversity in the classroom. And this is great, especially for preschool students who need to be exposed to that diversity in order to not be afraid of the other. And yet, when there is so much diversity in the classroom, including students who may be multiply oppressed from extremely diverse backgrounds, parents with two different cultures, how can one teacher bring in so much diversity and represent so many different people? And when they aren't represented, then they feel that school is unsafe. They have higher failure rates, they're more likely to drop out, and they feel invisible in the schools. And so some classes are implementing oral storytelling into the classroom. Oral storytelling empowers the students to tell their own stories, to bring their own voices and their own experiences into the classroom, rather than the teacher trying to be solely responsible for representing the experiences of others. Erin Elizabeth Flynn worked with preschool students. The classroom in which she studied and implemented oral storytelling had 67% of students who didn't speak English as their first language. She implemented storytelling. The students could tell any story they wanted. The students built community because they would often build off of each other's stories throughout the week. They also encouraged each other in their storytelling and formed a classroom where they learned to actively listen to one another. Claudia Sanchez worked with elementary students and implemented the Hispanic idea of dicho. Dicho are the short sayings that guide a family's life and a family's history. The students would talk to their grandparents, their aunts, and their uncles and learn about the dicho of the family and then choose a story that illustrated the dicho. Claudia Sanchez then used the students' dicho storytellings in order to build community between herself and the parents and between herself and the students. Cloven T. Georges implemented oral storytelling amongst college students. He used storytelling as a means to gather the experiences of students. Students went from viewing their school experience as being one of hostility and segregation to instead viewing their school as a welcoming, supportive, and inclusive place. The most fascinating research on implementing oral storytelling in the classroom comes from the work of Delia Baskerville, working in New Zealand. She worked with students in junior-aged classroom, ages 13 and 14. The classrooms had up to 6 cultural ethnicities in them at each time. She did a series of workshops where teachers first told a personal story to model the storytelling process to students, and then students told their own story. Before the research began, students only socialized with those from the same ethnicity as themselves. However, by the end of the research, students would socialize across the various ethnicities. They would check in with one another before school, after school, and during their lunch breaks. Students also displayed a visible difference in their body posture. They were more relaxed in class, and they completed more of their assignments. By the end of the research, students described their classroom as a place of empathy, compassion, trust, and respect. By implementing oral storytelling in the classroom, students are empowered to share their own experiences, their own culture, their own background, and their own family stories. There is still a place for teachers. Teachers can model storytelling, set the environment, the rules, and the policy for how stories are shared with confidentiality, respect, and active listening. Teachers can also bring in aspects and stories from other cultures that aren't represented in the classroom. When oral storytelling is brought into the classroom, those students who were previously at risk of feeling silent or invisible are instead encouraged to speak and find their own voice. In doing so, the stories are shared across the classroom, building bridges and forming community amongst the students.